Welcome to House of Valkyries, mythic life and business for soul on fire visionary women, and headquarters for all things Valkyries for Valkyries 6, which starts in 2 weeks, like literally to the minute, 2 weeks from now. Also, headquarters for embodiment, energetics, emotional mastery, and practical magics for said mythic fucking life and business. I am your host, Carly Raemer, and I am joined today by my actual literal blood sister, Hannah Raemer. Hannah was in Valkyrie's last round and is coming back again for Valkyrie 6. She was also at retreat, and we are going to talk about what Valkyries has been for Hannah, what what it looked like before Valkyries and inside of and after, and why she's coming back. And we'll start with a deep breath. And welcome.
Hello.
I want to know what was, that feels too formulaic. Uh, I want to know, there was a conversation. I'm actually going to throw this into our pot of things that we are going to talk about before I
Okay.
ask you a question. Um, Hannah Hannah coming into Valkyries is an action that I haven't seen. I'm sure it exists, but I haven't seen other containers hold sister to sister work. I mean, I've had many sisters come through Valkyries over the years, like two sisters inside a program, but I can't say that I've ever seen a facilitator hold her sister, her actual sister in container. And I want to, if that's meant to come in for this podcast, I want to just like put this into the things we may talk about because it's a really fucking big deal.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
actually, most most people in my position, most practitioners, most facilitators will tell you not to do that. Um, and Hannah and I both have a bit of a rebel streak in us, as I know all of you listening too. It's one of the energetics that drives Valkyries. Um, and so when it felt correct to do so, we did it. So, Hannah, I want you to feel back into this conversation that you and I had. We were sitting at there were two. They might merge. Both of them are restaurant conversations. One of them was in the pho restaurant in Golden, and the next one was in a breakfast restaurant in Boulder. And so just like feel back into that time in your life and uh, describe that kind of this like where you were pre-Valkyries and kind of some initial like calls to Valkyrie. Is that enough of a prompt?
It is. Absolutely. And I'm actually going to take it even further back than that. I'm going to take it back to Spain in April of 2023 on my birthday. And I called you and told you that my entire life was falling apart. I couldn't do it anymore. And I was about to book myself a flight home because I was having a very bad time in my relationship, um, and didn't have the skills to regulate. And so I had a complete breakdown. I called you at what was like 3 o'clock in the morning in Spain, and I don't have no idea what time it was here. And you asked me a question, and the question you asked me was, what feels true in your body? And what felt true in my body was booking myself a flight home. What I did instead was stay in Spain in a pretty unhappy situation for 2 more weeks. And well, I'm grateful for the experience. I did not listen to my body. And then we fast forward 3 months, and I called you because I was once again unhappy. Um, and it wasn't just a single thing, it was everything. I felt unfulfilled in my career. Um, I felt unfulfilled in my relationship. I was lonely. I was tired. I was unregulated. I was, having panic attacks regularly, not sleeping. I was drinking more than I wanted to, having emotional outbursts that affected my friends, that affected my personal relationships, that, destroyed some relationships in my life. And you brought to the table potentially doing some sort of work. You just brought it up and mentioned it. It's like, hey, there's this thing that I've been doing. It might be great for you. There are some people I know that I can get you in touch with. And I heard you and then continued staying in the same situation because it wasn't time. And then I think it was another month later or a month and a half later, we met at the breakfast spot in Boulder. And you're like, you know what? I talked to my guides. I talked to my spirit sisters, my soul sisters, and I think it's just time you join my group. And it's not something you do. Sisters working with sisters, especially with you as the facilitator, working through wounds, a lot of those wounds coming from a childhood that we spent together. Um, and I was crying and sobbing and was just like, fuck it. Like at this point, I don't know what I have to lose. So I don't really know what I'm signing up for, but I'm just gonna do it. And I did.
Yes. Yeah, so that I'm just gonna jump into your storyline with you. That moment for our listeners, um, I guess sort of that like time moment. Um, Valkyries kept telling me that Hannah was supposed to join us. And you guys, I had so much resistance. I was like, absolutely not. Like this is not this is like my brain and my human and all of my parts are like, what the fuck? No, and everything that had been modeled in other people's businesses are like, this is not how this is done. Um, and Hannah and I did not form a relationship growing up that was super squishy and rainbowy, and I feel like some sisters are blessed with that, and that's beautiful. And actually the women that I do see working together um came, and I would never say that everybody just had like a perfect upbringing. That's never true. Like there's always holes in our development, right? um but Hannah and I, while we absolutely had our like rainbowy, squishy, beautiful moments, had a lot of heartbreak between the two of us and a lot of mistrust. And so this coming back together was really like a really long time coming reclamation from a lot of like time schism, like time and distance apart.
Yeah.
And a lot of mistrust. So it was a big deal. So Valkyries was like, Hannah's coming. And I was like, no. And she's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it time and I'll feel into it. And time goes on and weeks goes on and Valkyries is like, like I said, and I'm like, yeah, dude, but like I don't think so. And then that breakfast, it was just like in my body, and she's like, tell her, and I told her. And we had so many conversations about what this means and like things that might come up, and being totally and brutally honest with each other and very communicative. But um, yeah, and I did consult my spirit guides, and I also consulted, like Hannah said, my sisters, the my OG crew of Valkyries, who has stayed on with me and become this term that I've coined. They've become my Facila sisters. But they my crew, my nightshades, I mean, you guys all know them at this point. It's like uh half of them have been on the show and the other two will be, but Violet, Karen, Libby, and Piper. And I was like, guys, I have this idea. Valkyrie's told me they want Hannah to come into group. And I just want to make sure that I don't have any blind spots, that like please feel through this with me, because one of the powers of having a sisterhood like Valkyrie's builds is that you can run your stuff through women who know your energetics through and through, and they can be like, yeah, that feels clean. Yeah, that feels clear. Or like, there's something in that, right? And they were like, yes, go, full steam ahead. Okay, so you didn't fully know what you were getting into. Isn't that always true?
Yeah,
Right. But
of course.
I'm curious, like from that point in your life, feeling into the possibility and the potential of the unknown, and of Valkyries, what were you what were you looking for? What were you hoping for? What was your ultimate yes? That's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do this.
Um, that I don't know. I have a lot of answers that are like simple and also really complicated to answer that question. Um, my ultimate yes, and this is, this is kind of me being your little sister and watching you, is I saw you go from a place where you were hurting and broken and falling apart, and things in your world were really, really hard, to living a life where you were fulfilled and like living beautifully, expanding, growing, building a business, doing all of these things that like seemed so impossible for me, so far away, like so unachievable. And I just stopped and looked at my life and was like, what is different in my life than Carl's when she made these changes? Like, the only thing stopping me from doing this is me, because I have self-worth, etc., the patterns, the stories we tell ourselves. And so it was just me telling myself and giving myself permission to accept I deserve a better life. I want a better life. And looking at you and seeing what you'd achieved in doing that was a huge piece for me, and being like, it's actually out there. It's not just this fantasy, it's not just this idea, it's not just something you read about in books. It's actually achievable, it's actually tangible. And seeing someone close to me go through that, experience the change, watching you actually grow and flourish was a huge piece for me, and me actually being able to say to myself, like, you can do this too. You
Hmm.
just have to actually do it.
Hmm. Mhm. Cool. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You just have to actually do it. That you just have to actually do it part is like, there's a lot of missing pieces in why dream lives aren't actualizing, or like why the dream business isn't taking off. There's a lot of missing parts, but this one is one of the ones that so many people try to just like skip over.
Uh-huh.
But like actually, if you're not gonna do it, it's not gonna do you back. Like you
Yeah.
have to,
Yeah, you
it's
have to
the
actually try. It's
right,
that
right,
point.
right.
It really sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
But also,
The action part is the like is the part that gets missed. Like you have to take action.
yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah.
And like you can work on energetics, you can work on strategy, you can work on whatever you want to work on, but like if you're not taking action, it's just not the needle's not going anywhere.
Building your website that I've been building for 6 months, and I'm still putting off, publishing because it's scary.
Yeah,
But
but you're gonna do
but you
that today.
yeah, but I'm gonna do it tomorrow actually, because I do actually need to make some tweaks. Um,
Okay,
and
we'll talk about that in a little
yeah,
bit.
that's unrelated to this. But yeah, I mean, you've said this to me a million times, and it's now something that I just repeat to myself pretty consistently, but the only way through is through. Um, and Valkyries hasn't been easy. Changing your life is not an easy thing. And I read something about this somewhere earlier this week, but it's, you look at holistic healing and everyone's just like happy in a meadow, meditating and doing their thing. And you actually have to do the work. And doing the work is re-triggering the wounds and experiencing them and moving them through your body and recognizing your patterns. And it's hard and it's painful. And I cried a whole lot. I cried more in the last like 9 months of my life than I think I have in the last 10 years. But I'm incredibly grateful for every single tear that I shed, because I actually shed them with a purpose, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
And you are much more regulated because of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Completely.
Like,
I
look at you having this conversation in your body.
and not crying, not shutting down emotionally, not running away,
You
actually
might
saying
still
yes.
you might still cry.
Oh, I'm absolutely going to. I can already feel it building, so it'll come eventually.
Great.
But me actually like saying yes to being on this podcast, like that alone is for me, that's a huge deal. I spent a lot of my life hiding myself, who I truly am, because I was so scared of being seen. And Valkyries forced me to be seen. And that changed how I approach every single piece of my life now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Side note, side quest, I will never forcing is a wounded masculine energetic,
Oh,
and there
word.
are some things that I will insist that you do inside of Valkyries, and I will insist that you are seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I use the word forced, and that's not the word that I really meant.
It
Um,
might be accurate here, actually.
it was an active choice on my part to be seen as well. And you also gave us options too. How can I do this in a way that feels safer in my body? And I chose to just full send it, um, and
Yeah.
just do it,
That's the way. Full
Yeah,
send.
all the
Yeah,
way.
cool. So, okay, so now you're forced to be seen and everybody's seeing you. And um, tell us about the inside of Valkyries. I realize that that's like a huge prompt. I mean, it's 6 months long and we did a retreat, but like the maybe just feel into the timeline that was Valkyries, like um what came up for you, what specifically changed something for you. Let's just start with what you discovered inside of Valkyries.
That's a very expansive question because there are so many things and some of them are really hard to put into words. Um, when I started Valkyries, when we started this last round of Valkyries, um, I was at the point where I was emotionally dysregulated, scared of myself, scared of my emotions, scared of facing anything in my life. And for me, that meant hiding behind walls. And those walls were, the way I dressed, the way I presented myself in public, the way I let other people see me, the way I communicated with everyone else. And coming into Valkyries was really scary. Women, especially, have been scary for me because, abandonment, betrayal, whatever my patterns are, accepting love from another woman has been terrifying. Being seen, friendship, sistership. You pointed out earlier, like we didn't have a squishy relationship. And it was scary to not only go into a place with you where we were going to be facing some truths, but also be seen by women that I didn't know, in that trust piece of, can I trust them? And the first couple of weeks were like, I don't know. I don't know about this. This feels weird in my body. Everything kind of feels like tingly right now. Every time I leave this, I have a little bit of anxiety because I feel like I overshared and maybe they don't like me. And, like going into a lot of my wounded patterning of, if I show up as myself, will I be loved? Will I be accepted? Will I fit into the group? And then progressing through Valkyries, actually, I'm going to take one more step back. I think also going into doing somatic work, doing embodiment work, doing any sort of holistic work, there's kind of an idea that is presented about what the type of person who does that work looks like. And it's very, very soft and very feminine and very like calm and things along those lines. And like you get this idea in your head of like a things along those lines, like yoga teachers or however you want to say it. And that's the idea that I had in my mind. And that's not at all who I am as a person. Not saying that I'm not calm or anything like that sometimes, but like I tend to be bigger. I dress loudly, I speak loudly, I do things loudly as a whole. And so coming in and actually showing up like that And then having that huge fear there of, if I show up as I actually want to be in this world, which is fully myself, you know, weird faces, weird noises, dancing, laughing, crying, being big, being too much for some people, would those women still love me? And I went through 6 months with them and then retreat. I think we ended up doing 7 months of Valkyries because we had an extra few weeks there.
I
Um,
always add on more time.
yeah. And it was, you know, the relationships that I have built there are with women that I would never look at previously, like my previous self would never look at and say, this is the type of woman who does this type of work. But I also never would have previously looked at how I present myself and say, this is the type of woman who does this type of work. So I was realizing that, one, you don't have to fit into a stereotype or a mold to do any of these things. You can just show up exactly as who you are. And that's what this is showing up as who you are and being accepted and being seen in that, and finding sisterhood in that, finding connections, finding relationships, finding other people. And it's like the biggest thing I've gained is confidence to actually like be myself and show up as myself in this world. Like with you, with, you know, with my jobs and my career, in my relationships, in my friendships. And while I have lost some people because I'm no longer presenting a facade of who I am, I've also gained some amazing people in my life. And it's completely game changing to show up in the world and say, hi, this is me. Fuck it. Who cares if you like me or not? I'm going to do it anyways. And then you find your people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm finding my people. I'm finding my tribe, you know?
Yeah. 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 Finding your people and finding your tribe. Pop back into those fears for me, about like, if I show up as me, if I show up and overshare, if I show up and I am too much, I show up and I am too loud, I show up and I am calm, like the spectrum of not good enough, or not good enough and too much, or like too much, I'm too much and not enough. There we go. It's such a funny spectrum because there's elements of both in each side. But anyway, you're like, all right, I'm in. And these fears of like, I'm not going to fit in, they're going to hate me, they're going to reject me, they're going to make fun of me, like all sorts of classic woman to woman, girl to girl stuff in here, right? Will I be loved? Were you? Were you
Absolutely.
loved?
Yes. I was fully loved and fully supported. And like, I have women all over the world that I still talk to on a regular basis. You know, I got a package in the mail from Piper this morning that was the best part of my day today because I got a bunch of stickers and I'm really excited about it. You know, it's not only was I loved, I was seen completely. Like heart broken open and fully seen as I wanted to be, and still accepted, still loved, not rejected,
Yeah, celebrated.
celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the parts that come a little bit held back, like this group of women are like, yes, please, thank you, more. Like we want more of you. More. Show us more. Yeah, fuck yeah. There is this really special kind of magic that happens when the parts of us that think that they can't show up, the parts of us that feel like we're going to be rejected, that we're going to be hated, that we're going to be abandoned, left, outcast, ridiculed, that we might just die, like these parts that are so afraid that something will happen if we show them. There's a special kind of magic that happens when we bring them, when they don't want to, they don't want to do that. That's like the last thing that these parts want to do, right? But we bring them into Valkyries, and these parts learn that not only are they not dead, like wow, we didn't die,
Yeah.
and not only are we're We're not outcast. We're not ridiculed. We're not made fun of. We're not split off from the group. We're not told that we're not too good or we're not good enough or we're too much. These parts learn that they are celebrated, that they are loved exactly as they are. And these parts are wily. They're the parts of us that are like squeamish and messy and ugly by societal standards. And we bring them, and then they learn that just like this, they learn that we're great here, we're loved here, we're celebrated here. And then they can become integrated in the whole.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like wow, words. Valkyries was like a practice run for real life. It's like, if I can show up in this space and do this, then I can show up in my everyday life and do this. I can show up in my relationships and do this. And if I can show up in my relationships and do this, I can show up in my job and do this. And if I can show up in my job and do this, what if I just show up in the world and do this? And then what if I also start helping other people do this too? Because
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Valkyries gave you confidence to be yourself. What is possible now that you have confidence to be yourself?
Everything. Literally everything. It's I'm trying to think of like how I want to say this, which like without overthinking it. Um, I have had such a problem with self-esteem in my life. Um, Forever, for as long as I can remember. Um, and I think a lot of women have that, but it was a debilitating factor for me in the way I was, in the way I lived. I never let myself actually just be alive. Um, I had patterns of attaching myself to people and then meshing myself into what I thought that person would like me to be, and then staying with them until it wasn't functional, and then finding another person and doing the exact same thing. And I spent the majority of my late teens and all of my 20s being someone that I was not. And that version varied based on who I was with and what part of my life I was in. Um, but I was never actually me in the world. I hid that part of me, the part that I actually liked. I made it, like, shoved it into a little teeny tiny ball and shoved it deep, deep down inside of me and hid it there so it would be safe, and just didn't let it out for a really long time. And Valkyries helped me find the confidence to actually just let that out. And so in the time frame of Valkyries, a lot of things in my life have shifted in major ways. I've completely changed my career. I have ended a long-term relationship that I thought was going to be my forever relationship. I have changed my entire friend group. I have changed the relationship that I have with alcohol. I have changed the relationship I have with exercise. That was a big one. That was, this. Everyone else doesn't know this. I had a pretty unhealthy relationship with exercise for a long time, where it became an eating disorder. And I've now actually been able to get into ultra running in a way that is healthy, where I am eating and taking care of my body. And that, that piece too. I eat well, I take care of my body. I wake up in the morning and actually look forward to my days. Um, I celebrate my small wins. And the last year of my life has been really hard. I've had two major surgeries. One of which was wildly actually both of which were unexpected. One that was a little bit heartbreaking, finding out at 35 that I was having an emergency hysterectomy because my uterus was dysfunctional. Like, that's something that, it's a hard thing to deal with, especially when it's just kind of thrown at you. Like, by the way, your body doesn't work right. So we're just going to remove the thing that, you know, makes you female, if you will. And then, you know, knee surgery, my running ended, and then I had to figure out how to regulate without exercise. And working through Valkyries is really what gave me the tools to get through what has been one of the hardest years of my life. But also, it's been one of the hardest years of my life because through Valkyries, I have learned to trust myself, to trust my body, and to find, or, you know, I found myself enough to have the confidence to make the changes that are making it hard, but also great at the same time.
Right.
Like things suck, but also I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck yeah. You, so you said the word tools, and way early on you said skills to regulate. And I want you to talk about this just for a sec. Skills to regulate, tools to get through. What are those? Like, what specifically did you learn inside of Valkyries that have been a game changer for you?
I mean, a few big things. One is noticing emotions, but not being my emotions. Recognizing that they're there. There's sadness, there's grief, there's pain, there's joy, there's happiness, there's whatever. But I don't have to be what that is. Or I can be what it is. And that's great sometimes too. But when you have those emotions, how do you deal with them? And previously, you know, I lived in a pretty dysregulated nervous system where I was running on high all of the time. I was always anxious, always stressed out, like always just go, 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 go. I could never calm down. I could never sit down. And with Valkyries, you know, we learned and we talked a lot about somatic work, embodiment work, being in our bodies. How do we regulate the body? You know, when you are angry and can't get out of it and it's just stuck, what do you do so that you're not stuck in that anger pattern anymore? Sacred rage practices are one of my favorite things in the entire world right now. And, you know, put on a loud song and scream, drive in the car and yell every single thing I want to say to what I'm mad at or who I'm mad at and get it out. And then replace it with something that actually feels good. Dance, joy dance, sad dance, you know, mad dance, sad dance. It's really hard to be upset in this world when you're shaking your booty. So that's been a big one for me. But even just small things, you know, breathing techniques. How do I regulate my breathing when I get overwhelmed? How can I bring myself from being in my head back into my body, back into my nervous system where I want to be? While we're having this conversation right now, you know, public speaking was also a really big fear for me for a long time. Getting through this conversation isn't just getting through it anymore. It's knowing that I'm coming from a space of regulation when I'm speaking out loud. And that is breathing. It's, you know, we did a deep breath at the beginning and you saw me do a little shake, and that, you know, shaking out the shimmies, your thoughts and feelies, just things to get back into the body, to bring me back to the present moment instead of the what's going on in my brain that is just my brain telling me things. You don't have to listen. They're just there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brain has all sorts of things to say.
Yeah. It
For
tells
sure.
me all kinds of things. And it's me saying, I don't always want to listen to you.
I know for sure for me, before this work schooled my life, that I had no idea what regulation or dysregulation meant, or nervous system this, nervous system that. That was it, like way over my head. Can you speak to what it means to be regulated in your body versus dysregulated in your body?
I mean, for me, being regulated in my body is actually being in my body. Not being in my brain, like I just said, but what am I feeling? You know, body scans. What am I feeling right now? How am I processing things? But actually listening to my body as well. For me, a state of dysregulation was my body sending me all kinds of cues and signals saying, like, this is not right. Something is not okay right now. And me just saying, it's fine. I'm going to move forward anyways. And being in a state of regulation with my body is listening. My body tells me everything I need to know. Is this right? Does this feel good? Do I want this? Do I not want this? Do I need to actually react right now, or do I need some time to calm down? Is
Mm,
this something that I'm actually upset about? Like, do I actually have anxiety right now? Or am I just nervous about something and I'm going into a place of dysregulation? And then when I notice myself doing that, how can I get myself back to a place of calm? So it's just, for me, regulation in my body is a sense of calm. It's a sense of being in awareness of what is happening in me and also around me, and what I am doing to keep that state
yeah. Yeah. Great.
versus
Thank you.
just letting things happen.
Yeah. 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 I want to stay on the spot just for a minute because it feels relevant and important. Um, Dysregulation is the is what happens when we repress something that needs to express. So dysregulation, or like a charge in the body, this is when we start to feel nervous. It's the nervous system. And so when it's dysregulated, we'll feel nervous or like spinny.
Yeah.
Um, and dysregulation happens when we're resisting feeling a feeling. Something needs to express, and energy needs to express, which is what a lot of what we're learning in Valkyries is moving energy through the body. When we express the energy, it's no longer stuck in our body and we can come back to a space of regulation. So if you're dysregulated, there's very likely something that needs to be expressed from your body. And regulation happens after you express an energy out of your body. Dysregulation gets a really bad rap in the spiritual development growth community, that like, if you don't have a regulated nervous system all the time, you're doing it wrong. Um, that's fucked up. It's not true. Um,
Uh-huh.
my desire for every single woman that goes through Valkyries is that she has a skill set to bring herself back to regulation, while also utilizing a dysregulated state to expand. Because if when we're meeting edges, which we are, like that is necessary if you're trailblazing your soul's movement in the
Yeah.
world, there's gonna be a charge in it. And every time you meet a new space in yourself, or come face to face with a fear, or like, oh God, I've never done this before, whatever this is for everybody, there's a there's a natural state of dysregulation because we're moving forward. We're putting our bodies in a state of fight, essentially.
Yeah.
We have to have that to meet edges and to get bigger. And I want everyone to have the tools available to move that charge through your system so you can learn you can learn that essentially it's safe to do that. And another thing that regulation in the body tells our body is that we're safe.
Hmm.
So if we can meet new experiences, things that we're afraid of, and then signal back to ourselves regulation, it's a cue to ourselves as well as the universe that we're good, that we have capacity. This is really where like growing capacity, growing a business, growing our movement in the world, growing money energetics. This is really where regulation comes into hand. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
side quest.
And to like speak just one more small thing on the dysregulation as well. I I want to like completely agree with you in saying that like a lot of people kind of give the idea that like if you're in this space, being regulated all of the time is like what it means to like succeed in this field, is almost kind of what it feels like. And for me, a lot of it is more noticing when I am in dysregulation. Like, you know, the last few weeks have been a little bit difficult, and my nervous system has not been very regulated. However, being in that state, And knowing that I am dysregulated, and also what patterns I typically do when I'm dysregulated,
Mm.
and keeping myself from falling into my old patterns and just saying, we're in a dysregulated state. Yesterday was a bad day for me. So noticed I was in a dysregulated state. And instead of doing my old patterns, which are very unhealthy and lead to bad things for me and other people, I took myself home, I read a book, and I took a bubble bath. Did it fix every single thing in my nervous system? No. But I noticed where I was at, noticed what was happening in my body, and said, I can at least do one small thing for myself to give myself, one, some self-love because I really needed it, but also to recognize the dysregulation and bring me a little bit back home, a little bit more back home.
Awesome. Awesome. I have a question for you, and we did not discuss this beforehand. And if it feels untrue to answer it, let me know. I am curious about therapy versus Valkyries, because you've done therapy.
I've done
All the time.
15 plus years of therapy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. So I mean, I can say lots of things on this. I have had great therapists. I have had really bad therapists. I have done really intense, in-depth therapy. I have done EMDR therapy. I've done group therapy, DBT, CBT. Like, I've done the gamut of therapy things. And I think therapy can be a very useful tool sometimes. Um, for me, at points in my life, it was very beneficial. And there were other points in my life where it was not at all. Um, and it was a very forced thing, and I hated it. And therapy taught me some tools, but it also taught me a lot of stuff that I keep in my brain. And instead of therapy versus Valkyries, Valkyries teaches you how to process things through your body. I'm feeling this. How do I move it through my body? Therapy puts a lot of words on things. So if I look at myself from the perspective of a therapist and, what I've been told over the years, I have a bunch of labels, a bunch of diagnoses. I have CPTSD. I have ADHD. I have an eating disorder. I have anxiety. I have depression. Like, the list goes on and on. And these are all things that, like, you start to identify as. And being in therapy for as long as I was, it became kind of the factors that I presented to the world as, like, this is who I am as a person. Like, I'm a traumatized person who has an eating disorder. And that's really like how I just learned how to present myself, because that was so consistently being fed to me as, like, this is what I am. So it gave me a lot of information, but that information wasn't necessarily great. And I think probably hindered me moving forward in a lot of places in my life for a long time. I'm going to use my eating disorder as an example here. I was a type 1 anorexic. Again, another label, and it is so type 1 anorexia is anorexia where you don't eat and also have binge purge behaviors. And my binge purge behaviors is I would over exercise. So I would not eat, and then I would go to the gym and exercise for 5 or 6 hours. I went into eating disorder treatment when I was 24, and I weighed 73 pounds when I went into treatment. I was close to not being alive anymore as a person. And it was a terrible time in my life. I also, learned a lot about myself there. But being in such an intense inpatient facility, one was traumatizing because I was in a facility with 30 other girls who were dealing with really, really severe emotional issues too. But also, I was going to therapy for 6 hours a day and having doctors tell me everything was wrong with me. And if you don't eat, you're going to die. This is going to happen. Your life is going to end. And it kind of it almost added to the trauma. And then I got out of eating disorder treatment and was so afraid of falling back into the patterns that I had previously had, my, my anorexic patterns, that I would start overeating. So I went the opposite way. I was so scared of going back there that I stopped exercising completely because it was a bad thing. And so it, like, therapy can be really good, and it can be a great tool to have someone to talk to and to say, this is hard and my work and I'm mad and I'm frustrated, and, explanations. But for me, going through Valkyries, and I'm going to bring this back to the eating disorder, for the first time in my life, I have been able to build a relationship with food where it is something that is um pleasurable. Like, I can actually take joy in it again, and also used as fuel for my body, which has allowed me to get back into what I love doing, which is running and doing endurance sports in a healthy way, where I'm actually taking care of myself, where I'm actually loving myself, where I actually was in my body and listened to what my body said instead of just having a lot of things thrown at me. Valkyries helped me actually find what my self needed to hear, like what me was telling me, kind of.
Mhm.
That was a really long explanation for something. Sorry.
Yeah, no, not at all. That's okay. That's perfect. Yeah, I have one more thing to offer on this moment, and then um, two two more questions for you, and we have 10 minutes to do it.
Okay.
Uh, and we all know that I'm excellent at time.
Time management.
Um, I I mean um no ill will against any kind of therapy. I think also that therapy is a great tool. Um, I am at the Gestalt Institute of the Rockies training to be a Gestalt therapist myself. Like I've got no beef with therapy. But I do find that um that therapies, and I realize it's a huge
Yeah.
umbrella therapy. Um, what I find is that women who have done a lot of therapy and come into Valkyries know a lot about their stuff. They know a lot about their patterns and conditionings and attachment styles. And when this happens, then I do this, and this happened because of this, and this happened because of this. But it's not changed anything at all.
Yeah.
And they're still operating in the same space. Now they're just aware of it.
Yeah.
Um, but what Valkyries does is takes this cognitive knowledge and runs the old pattern through the body so that again that's expressed and we can make space for the new pattern. So it's a wild shift out of understanding what's happening to actually embodying essentially the old energy needs to go through the body first so that we can shift into the new embodiment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, okay. I okay, next question. I want to know what is happening in your life now that is a direct result of Valkyries. What is possible now?
I mean, to start, like, starting my own business, it's something I've wanted to do for a really long time, but it has been a huge fear of mine. Um, because fear of failure. I think all of us have that to some degree, but there was huge fear of failure there. Uh, and it's, starting my own business, making moves in the world, allowing myself to be a big presence in this world, not trying to make myself small to fit in anymore. What's happening in my life now? I mean, leaving what has been a beautiful relationship, but a non-fulfilling relationship, recognizing that I deserve more in the world, giving myself more in this world, giving myself the love, finding the love within myself instead of seeking it from another person. Um, I can actually sit down and calm down now. I think when we started Valkyries, we had many conversations about this, but sitting still for even just a few minutes was hard because I didn't want to be in my brain, and I didn't want to be in my body, and I didn't want to be in my head. And now one of my favorite places to be is home, not doing things and just being with myself. You know, showing up, silly things, posting myself on Instagram. I was so scared of doing that before because of judgment of other people. And now you'll find me baking and singing and dancing pretty much every day. You know, meeting women, meeting men, just meeting other people in this world and actually allowing them into my life in a way that's meaningful instead of pushing people away or only letting them this far in because I'm too scared to actually let them all the way into my life. Pursuing new passions, opening new doors. Literally everything that I've ever wanted is now accessible to me. And it's, you know, becoming the woman that I've always wanted to be.
Who is she?
She's me. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to explain that, but she is me. She is big and bold and fiery and ferocious and also soft and gentle and loving. She shows up in the world as herself with joy and laughter and abundance and an open heart. You know, I left you a message about this earlier today, but the ability to love and the capacity that I have to love, like myself, but also other people, has grown so much. And that's like one of my favorite things about myself. It's also one of the most heartbreaking things because you get hurt a lot when you have a big heart. But also I love the fact that I can love so bigly. That was a stupid word. So openly and freely and with so much, you know, so much capacity for others. And also for myself. I never thought I could love myself as much as I do.
So what's up?
Actually liking yourself as a human is a pretty solid place to be.
Yep, the most. Cool. Great. So this new version that you're stepping into that is starting her own business. What is your business about?
My business is currently, as we are right now, is going to be coaching, personal training, for women who want to live a big lifestyle, who want big lives, who want big adventures in this world, the wild women, the trailblazers, the people who like doing big things and who don't want a traditional workout plan where you're spending 3 or 5 days a week in the gym. How can I build you a program so you can live the biggest life you possibly can? Because that's all we want to do. You know, do you want to be a snowboarder? Cool. What can I do to make that better for you? Is it mobility? Is it yoga? Is it nutrition? Is it strength training? Let me know. So it's customized training plans for people who want to live big adventure lives.
Great. And you used future tense when you talked about this, but I just want to bring this in present tense and and make you squirm in your seat a little bit and say that this is present tense and you can hire Hannah at any moment, including right now.
HannahRayCoaching.com is the domain you can find me at. We're still working out some kinks in the details, but that is where that coaching is. It will be 3 to 5 weekly workouts with nutrition if you would like to add nutrition as well. And we will be doing customized plans with one-on-one calls weekly to check in and see where we need to make tweaks and changes. And yeah, that is what I am currently offering.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cool.
I guess I should probably actually launch my website.
There's something that's unique to me is I will this is the forcing energetic here again. I will put you in the driver's seat of making your life what you want it to be. I'm a fire starter. You say you want to do a thing, we're gonna do the thing. So here you are, just making your very first pitch on live podcast recording, and you did it. And now you're gonna
What day is this actually coming out?
this afternoon.
Oh shit, okay. All right. Well, I have like 3 hours. I need to go sit in a coffee shop for a little bit. But yeah, I will get that live today.
Mhm.
I
You
do have
can
a
also, I'll also, you can also just use your Instagram. Like I will put
okay,
Hannah's Instagram into the show
Hannah J.
notes.
Ray. That's my Instagram. DM me. We'll figure it out.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So often business like things, logistics and details don't fucking matter. Just make the thing, say the thing, go do the thing. Call in your people, give
yeah,
them a way to pay you. You got it.
yeah.
Great.
I have a follow-up question when we're done with this.
Okay. Um, okay, so you are last thing, and then we'll wrap up. You are coming back to Valkyries 6, which again starts in 2 weeks to this
Mhm.
very moment. Actually, we'll just have completed our housekeeping call right now. Why? Why are you coming back?
Well, so many reasons. One, I'm really excited to be back in container with some amazing humans that I got to be in container with before. But also to keep going on this journey. 6 months is an amazing time, but there's always more there. And going to retreat, being with these women in person, um, really just kind of was the culmination of an amazing 8 months of my life and the realization that I don't want that to end. Um, I'm not I'm not ready. I don't think I'll ever be ready for that to stop. Um, but I have more work to do. And so I'm coming back because I want to keep growing. I want to keep building. I want to keep changing, meeting edges, finding new parts of myself that I maybe probably repressed for a few years
Yeah.
or most many years. Um,
Couple decades. What's a couple decades, really?
what it is what it is. Um, just because, I want to live the biggest life I possibly can. And I feel like Valkyries is a huge, huge piece of me doing that.
Amazing.
Woo!
Okay, so when you're ready to join us, when you are ready to join an intimate, high touch group of total badass trailblazing women who are all building their own soul missions in this world, and you know that you absolutely need the energetics and the somatics to do this on your own together is how I want to say that. Um, earlier on in this episode, I was like, action is always the missing key. Another huge missing key is community. There's lots of things that I can and will continue saying about this, but we go faster alone and farther together. And in this lone wolf forward society, what we all truly, truly need is contact. So on that note, links and everything you could possibly need is again in show notes. We start in 2 weeks and we cannot wait to have you.